Russian drones once again crossed into NATO territory, this time breaching Poland's airspace near the border with Ukraine. For the United States and its NATO allies, this was more than just another provocation, it was a direct test of Western resolve. After months of drone attacks, missile strikes, and warnings, Washington has finally reached the point where patience is running thin. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and like my videos for more updates on the Russia-Ukraine war and NATO's response. The news of Russian drones flying into Poland sent shockwaves across Europe. For Poland, a NATO member with a history of standing up to Moscow, this was an intolerable violation. The Polish Ministry of Defense confirmed that multiple Russian drones entered their airspace before being forced out. This is not the first time, but it is one of the most serious incidents yet, because it happened at a moment when NATO is already on high alert. The United States immediately voiced its support for Poland, calling the drone intrusion a reckless and dangerous escalation by Moscow. Washington officials emphasized that NATO's Article 5 remains the cornerstone of Western defense. If Russia deliberately targets NATO territory, the entire alliance will respond. But even short of a direct strike, these repeated violations are testing NATO's credibility in real time. For NATO, the drone breach in Poland raises urgent questions. How far is Russia willing to go in its campaign against Ukraine? Is Moscow deliberately trying to intimidate Poland? Or are these drone flights part of a broader strategy to push NATO's red lines? Intelligence officials in Washington and Brussels believe the Kremlin may be probing for weakness. If NATO tolerates repeated intrusions without consequences, Russia could escalate further, perhaps with missile launches close to NATO soil or cyber attacks against Polish infrastructure. The United States, however, is signaling that it has had enough. Pentagon officials leaked reports that air defense deployments in Eastern Europe are being reinforced. Patriot missile batteries already stationed in Poland are now on higher alert, and more advanced systems could be moved in if necessary. The message is clear. NATO is preparing not just to defend Ukraine indirectly, but to protect its own borders decisively. Meanwhile, NATO leadership held emergency consultations after the latest breach. Poland demanded stronger air defense coordination along its borders and called for an expanded NATO presence in the east. Within hours, NATO's Secretary-General publicly condemned Russia's actions and assured Poland of full alliance support. This wasn't just diplomatic language. Surveillance aircraft, AWACS radar planes, and additional fighter jets were immediately dispatched to monitor the skies over Eastern Europe. In Washington, lawmakers across party lines reacted strongly. Some are calling for a firmer military stance, while others push for accelerated arms deliveries to Ukraine. The White House faces growing pressure to draw a harder line, not only against Russia's war in Ukraine, but against its provocations toward NATO. Officials know that if Poland or any other NATO state were to be directly attacked, the alliance would be forced into direct confrontation, a scenario everyone wants to avoid, but one for which preparations are quietly underway. For Russia, this strategy of flying drones into NATO airspace may appear bold, but it carries enormous risk. Every incident increases the chance of miscalculation. A drone shot down over Poland could trigger a military response. A crash in a populated area could inflame public opinion across Europe. And if even one NATO soldier were killed as a result of Russian actions, the pressure to retaliate would be overwhelming. Experts note that Russia's drone campaign may not be accidental at all. By pushing the boundaries, Moscow tests both NATO's military readiness and political unity. But so far, the response has been unified. Every member of the alliance has condemned Russia's provocations, and Washington has promised to back Poland fully. The US also understands that defending NATO territory is not just about Europe, it is about global credibility. Allies in Asia, particularly Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, are watching closely. If NATO falters in the face of Russian provocations, it would send a dangerous signal to authoritarian powers elsewhere. That is why the Biden administration has made clear that any attack on NATO soil will be met with consequences. On the ground in Poland, civilians living near the border have grown accustomed to the sound of air raid sirens and military aircraft patrolling overhead. Yet each drone incident reminds them how fragile the situation is. Many Poles see the war in Ukraine not as a distant conflict, but as a threat on their doorstep. Local officials have demanded more NATO forces and are preparing shelters in case the war spills over into their territory. Ukraine, meanwhile, has seized on the drone breaches as proof that Russia's aggression threatens not just Ukraine, but the entire alliance. Ukrainian officials argue that NATO should respond more forcefully by supplying Ukraine with the weapons needed to stop Russian drones at their source. Long-range missiles, advanced air defense systems, and unrestricted support are, in Kyiv's view, the best way to keep NATO safe. In response, NATO countries are already increasing their military aid. The US has approved another package of advanced air defense interceptors, while Germany and the UK are preparing to send more Patriot systems and radar units. These moves are designed not just to protect Ukraine, but to reinforce NATO's own borders against spillover attacks. The Kremlin, of course, denies any deliberate violation of NATO airspace. Russian officials claim the drones either went off course or that the reports are fabricated Western propaganda. But satellite imagery and radar tracking data confirm otherwise. These denials are unlikely to convince anyone, and instead highlight Russia's strategy of escalating tensions while pretending innocence. The bigger question now is what NATO's next step will be. Some analysts believe NATO may declare a no-fly zone along parts of the Polish border, effectively shooting down any Russian drones that come too close. Others think NATO will focus on deterrence, building up its presence in Eastern Europe to such an extent that Russia cannot risk escalation. What is clear is that the US and NATO have drawn a line. They may not want direct war with Russia, but they also cannot allow Moscow to normalize attacks on NATO territory. Each drone that crosses into Poland is not just a tactical event, it is a political test of NATO's strength. In the end, Russia's provocations may backfire. Instead of scaring NATO, they are strengthening it. Instead of dividing the West, they are uniting it. And instead of weakening Ukraine's cause, they are reinforcing the argument that supporting Kyiv is essential to defending Europe itself. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates on the Russia-Ukraine war and NATO's response.